I got my tea and you guys sent in a lot of questions, so I'm gonna answer them. Do you speak or know any Japanese dialects? Actually, sort of, yeah. The region that I stayed in when I was an exchange student is the Tohoku region, so it's northeastern Japan. It's often just called northern Japan, but it's not Hokkaido, it's a little bit below Hokkaido. But I was in the Iwate prefecture, and they do have Tohoku Ben, which is the Tohoku dialect. And from what I could tell while I was there, aside from a few like very slight regionalisms, like the region where I stayed in, they have their own word for kawaii. It's menkoi. And it's like, it's kind of slightly different from kawaii. It's more like specifically for kids. But aside from that, like, unlike Kansai Ben, the endings of their sentences and words aren't different. Like, in Kansai Ben, if you wanted to say, arun daro, like, don't you have it? In Kansai Ben, that'd be like, arun yaro, like the da becomes ya. There's nothing like that, like no major changes like that. Like, dakara in Kansai Ben is like yasakai. It's like because yasakai. It's like that's completely different. But in Tohoku Ben, really the main difference is the intonation. It's where your pitch rises and falls. I was told by the end of my stay that my intonation was like more like Tohoku Ben, and I was told at the beginning, like people were always marveling, like, oh my god, your accent's so good. And I'm like, I don't know whether to completely believe them because Japanese people tend to be like very like heavy with compliments in general. But yeah, they claimed that my intonation shifted a little, and I would not be at all surprised if it did, because accents in America tend to rub off on me pretty easily, like without even trying. Pick up other people's accents. But yeah, in Tohoku region, it's really just an intonation difference. But yeah, I mean, Kansai Ben and any variants of that, like Kyoto Ben, Hyogo Ben, like any specific Osaka Ben, anything from that Kansai region in general. I generally know that pretty well because it's pretty prevalent in manga. Like they're one of my favorite characters, Tasuki from Shigeyugi, speaks in Kansai Ben, so it's like I understand Kansai Ben okay. And you know, other accents I've encountered here and there. Speaking of Tohoku Ben though, in Aomori specifically, and with the elderly, when I met with my host relatives, host grandparents during New Year's, and those are my annoying neighbors stomping on my ceiling. You have them to thank for all of the stomping that happens in my videos. Anyway, I digress. Tohoku Ben, in its extreme form, I said earlier that they don't really change the syllables like Kansai Ben does, but actually they do in Aomori, in the very rural areas. They change ki, for example. All occurrences of ki are pronounced chi. So I remember when I was visiting some host grandparents during New Year's, they were offering me mikan, tangerines. Incidentally, I got tangerines in like every house we visited. She asked me, mikan's chi, chirai? Like it would be mikan suki, kirai in like normal Japanese, but she's like suchi, chirai. And like my host sister's name was Akiko at the time, but she pronounced it, the grandma pronounced it Achiko. So like they completely, any occurrence of ki is now chi. There's another couple syllables that also change entirely. Among other things. And that accent is called Zuzu Ben. It's kind of a slangy way of saying it. But yeah, Zuzu Ben, I saw a documentary on it on TV while I was there, and yeah, it's pretty out there. And that is pretty much like a different language. I couldn't even really understand it. What kinds of music do you enjoy? What do you particularly not enjoy? With an exclamation point and a question mark. What kinds of music do I enjoy? I enjoy good music. I enjoy, like, generally, like, my tastes kind of have evolved over my lifespan. Like, when I was a kid, it was pretty much exclusively classical music. Like, I'd hear 80s rock and, like, heavy metal coming from my brother's room, and I'd, like, pretend that I didn't like it because I was being a classical music snob, but secretly I was digging the Metallica that I was hearing through his door. And yeah, consequently, I really got into Rammstein. That was sort of my gateway to metal. Rammstein's not quite metal, it's dance metal, like dance metal, but I pretty much like metal in like all of its forms. Even some black metal and death metal, like I like a little bit, but I love, in particular, symphonic metal, like Camelot, Nightwish, Epica, those kinds of bands. I really like Dream Theater a lot. They're, progressive metal. I like Dragon Force, even like metalcore, like Killswitch Engage, and even like mainstream metal that's sort of metal but not really, like Disturbed. Even Evanescence, which is not metal, but some people call it metal. Linkin Park, like anything that like has metal vibes. I generally like that. I was really into J-pop and J-rock for a while, particularly Hamasaki Ayumi and Gakto and TM Revolution. And I also, I mean, I still really like classical music, but I also really like funny music, like Bo Burnham, Stephen Lynch, Some Lonely Island, Weird Al. So I don't know, I kind of like all music that's good, I suppose. I even like bad music. I really like Friday by Rebecca Black. Call Me Maybe. Actually, that's not really bad. It's just very cheesy. But yeah, I mean, I like what I like. I like music. Except what I particularly not enjoy. I don't particularly enjoy hip-hop, R&B, and rap. Like, I don't dislike that entirely. Like, there's plenty of like hip-hop, R&B, and rap songs that I like, but generally speaking, I'm not a fan of those genres. But what I hate and what makes me cringe and what I never like is country. I just can't. Hello, I'm a new subscriber. The first video of yours I watched was a day in the life of a Japanese translator. Oh my, yeah, I used to do lifestyle vlogs, didn't I? And I read somewhere in the comments section that you only translate from Japanese to English. Why do you not also oh yeah, I remember. Why do you not also translate from English to Japanese? What exactly are the implications of translating from one language to another in this respect? And then, yeah, the next person also asked a very similar question, like, is translating from Japanese to English an option if English isn't my first language? So it's weird. I don't understand why I keep getting this question, because to me it just seems like a duh sort of answer, but it isn't obviously a duh sort of answer, because lots of people ask me, like, not just people in comment sections of these videos, people like that I encounter in real life. If I mention, they're like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a Japanese to English translator. They almost always ask, like, oh, like the two questions they always ask are, do you also translate into Japanese? And the other question that they always ask is, do you like write out the translations or do you do the voices? Like, those are the two questions that I'm always asked. So yeah, the thing about translating, what I do, the kind of translating that I do, which is localization. So it's translation for entertainment purposes. The thing about that kind of translation is you really not only have to be a good translator, but you have to be a good writer in the language that you are translating into, which is the target language. So if I translate into English, I have to be a good writer in English. Otherwise, my translations, my localizations are going to suck. The second question in this series, you know, translating into English if it's not my first language, I don't recommend it, like, really. I mean, it's one thing, like, I've known plenty of people where English is not their first language, it's their second language, but they are fluent and flawless, like people that are truly bilingual. A lot of my Chinese American friends growing up were like that. Like, English was technically their second language, but they were fluent and they were good writers and they were really smart and they were creative. So, you know, some people, yes, can translate both ways and do it very well, you know, with localization and the like. But generally speaking, I just don't think it's a good idea if you're not really, really, really strong in the target language that you're translating into. I don't think it's a good idea to translate into a language that you're just not strong at. Another long question. What is the most, oh yeah, this is two questions. So question one, what is the most surprising / shocking incident that happened in your high school? For example, a bear came into the playground. Oh, did that happen to you? Or was that just sort of like an example that you're pinning to me? Like, this is an example of something that would be shocking. Anyway, I can't remember. High school was so freaking long ago. You know, like, the only thing I can think of, I mean, there was probably something more shocking than this, but my friends, like my little friend group, we were the nerds, so we like to hang out like far away from everyone else. So at the very edge of the school, there was the special education building. So a lot of like autistic kids and young adults learned there, and just, you know, students with other special needs learned there. And there was one of those students there I was eating cup ramen, I remember, and my friend Joanne was next to me, and he was having an episode or a problem, and he was just yelling and screaming, and he marched over to us and he pushed her down onto the ground, and then he grabbed my cup ramen and just crushed it in his hand, and then like dropped it, and then yelled and stormed off away. Like, we were okay, but yeah, that was kind of like, what? And then he came back later and apologized, but yeah, it was like, that was weird, definitely. One more question. Do you like Japanese comedy such as Yoshimoto? Oh yeah, so I assume you mean Matsumoto from Downtown. It took me years to get used to the sense of humor of Downtown, who is one of the comedians in Yoshimoto. Wait, Downtown is one of the comedians in Yoshimoto. Is Yoshimoto another comedy group that I don't know of, and then Downtown is part? But Downtown is not one comedian, it is a duo. I am confused. Let me look up Yoshimoto comedy group. Downtown. La la la. This site can't be reached because your internet connection is crappy. Come on, dude. I swear, like, I take my computer into the room that my router is not in, and my internet connection is suddenly the weakest thing that craps out all the time. It's already bad. The internet sucks in America, by the way. Most of you guys are not in the US, so you don't know this, but yeah, the internet here really sucks. And it's really expensive, too. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, yeah, I won't. Oh, wait, there it is. No, it looks like... Okay, it looks like you're probably asking about Matsumoto. Hitoshi Matsumoto from Downtown. I'll assume, I'm sorry if there is a comedy group named Yoshimoto that Downtown is a part of, I couldn't find that. Anyway, it took me years to get used to the sense of humor of Downtown, who is one of the comedians. When I watched their comedy for the first time in my childhood, it was not fun for me at all. I thought their comedy was similar to bullying, but as I got older and understood the norms of Japanese culture, I got to have a sense of humor. Now their comedy makes me laugh because I understand Japanese culture and its norms. However, I still think that their comedy is partially based on excluding someone from a group and teasing someone like a bully. If you're familiar with Japanese comedy, I want to know your thoughts on this topic. So yeah, I actually am very familiar with Downtown. I used to watch, well, Downtown circa 20 years ago. I used to watch Hey 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 Music Champ, like, religiously. I watched it on Fuji TV because I lived in San Jose and we had really good, like, Japanese TV that was broadcast and even subtitled a lot of the shows. So I watched a little Hey 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 even before I went to Japan for the year. But when I was in Japan for the year, every Monday evening I watched Hey 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 Music Champ, and Downtown were the two comedians who hosted that. So I am relatively familiar with Downtown. And Matsumoto, I saw him acting actually in a serious, like, role in a made-for-TV movie. Like, and it was about a kid who was being bullied at school, and he was like one of the teachers or something. But anyway, yeah, they're part of the Manzai duo that they have in Japan, and it's sort of like a throwback to, like, a good comparison is like American comedy, like in the 20s, think vaudevillian, Laurel and Hardy, like you think, and you have the straight man and the absurd funny man, and then in Manzai comedy you have the same thing. You have the tsukomi yaku, which is like the guy who, tsukomu is like, it's hard to translate, but it means like you're butting in, the quipper, like the person who riffs off, the person who butts in basically and like tries to correct the person or tries to put the person in their place or tries to bring sanity to the conversation. And then the boke yaku, the idiot, is the other member of the manzai. So you have the tsukomi and the boke, and the tsukomi is like the straight man and the boke is the crazy, silly, absurd one. And Matsumoto is the boke. And yeah, when it comes to comedy, I tend to like deadpan, satire, dark humor. I like some absurdism. I like anti-humor. I even like, I like fart jokes, and I like some slapstick a little bit. And punnery is fun, but I generally really like basically the British comedy aesthetic. I like dry, deadpan, dark satire. I like that kind of humor. So Japanese manzai humor, I'm not actually as big a fan of. The bokeh characters in particular, I just don't like how, like, and Matsumoto in particular, I noticed during the interviews when they'd interview singers on Hey 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 Music Champ, like, they'd say something remotely funny, and then he would just, like, fall out of his chair laughing, just so exaggerated. And that's his job. He's the bokeh. Like, he has to be very exaggerated. And like very like ha ha ha. Sanma, I used to watch Sanma no Karakuri Terebi. It was another like TV series from 20 years ago. But it was hosted by Sanma, another big older comedian in Japan who was more of a bokeh sort of character himself. And yeah, I was never really a fan of that either. I don't like comedians who laugh at their own jokes. I just don't. You make your joke not funny anymore when you laugh at it. And yeah, in manzai comedy, like the tsukomi character will often like whack the bokeh on the head if they're being stupid and call them stupid. Which yeah, like again, I'm kind of like, eh. I see like what they're trying to do. It's just not my thing. It's not because I don't understand it. It's just not my thing. And it's not to say that like straight man with a funny, crazy person doesn't work. Like it definitely works. We use that formula, like we revert to that formula a lot in comedy sports. I actually do improv comedy on the side, for those of you who are new and don't know that. But yeah, I do comedy sports in Seattle, and I actually am usually the straight man in all the scenes. I kind of just revert to that because there are so many very talented, absurd, like wacky, funny people on the team. And like, I'm not that funny. So I just play the straight person so that they can look extra funny. And it works, like it definitely does work. But again, I prefer dry deadpan humor. Hello from a Swiss French translator. I like to know whether you already stumbled on Japanese words or expressions that were simply untranslatable, thinking of umami, and how you got around the problem. Well, tsukomi, that was the one earlier that I came across. I was trying to like translate to explain to you guys what tsukomi is. I come across words and like the phrasing of things that's like, how should I best word this? But it's not so much a problem in localizing. Because it's creative writing. So I really just have to look at the essence of what the character is trying to express and say and express that in English. So I mean, sometimes I come across some words where I'm like, I wish we had a version of this word in English. And sometimes I come across words where we really do have a version of it in English, but it's like, like a high-level SAT kind of word that most people wouldn't use in conversation. So I have to pick some stupider word to use instead. But yeah, it's not so much a problem in creative translating or localizing because, I approach it more as a writer than as like a linguist. The real question is, why do you still use Yahoo? Also, do you still have an AOL account? Yeah, I suggested that people submit questions also to my email if they didn't want to comment. Actually, I have like 3 or 4 Gmail addresses. So I basically just wanted to get an email address just specifically for my YouTube channels for people to contact me. I didn't want people to know like my business email or my personal email or anything. Or the email account associated with this channel because that's dangerous. Like people could get my information and stuff. And I was like, I already have like 3 Gmail accounts, so I'm like, Yahoo, whatever, sure, I'll get a Yahoo account. I don't really care. I mean, eventually down the road, if I get a website or something for these channels, then I might it would be at thewebsitename.com. I'd get one of those instead of like, Yahoo, Gmail, whatever. I don't know. I don't dislike it. Meh. And I never got an AOL account. I guess I did get one because we did use those free trial CDs because we were cheap and we didn't want to pay for the internet. But I never used my email with AOL if I ever had one. What is something you enjoy or are interested in that you think might surprise us, like a hobby or a genre of music or a TV show or movie, video game, or other things like that? So if you've been watching for years, I have so many videos. It's hard to remember like what I've said and haven't said. But I don't think I mentioned that I really like I mentioned earlier that I like funny music, like Bo Burnham and Stephen Lynch and those people. I also really like Jon Lajoie, and he came back into my consciousness recently because he started uploading again. He's an OG YouTuber. Like, go back and watch some of his classics. I think they're from the late zeros, maybe early teens as well.
Show me your genitals. Your genitals. What? Show me your genitals.
But yeah, he's a French-Canadian comedian, does all his comedy in English. And yeah, he does a lot of fake commercials and funny songs and music videos. And I really enjoy his videos.
Why's he treating me this way? All of a sudden he's washing me like 200 times a day.
How has your translating career been going over the last year? And how big are the chances of establishing a career as an online translator without qualifications? Okay, so for the last year, I did do a video at the beginning of 2019 on how much money I made in 2018. Like, I like being transparent. I was thinking of doing that for what I made in 2019, but it was pretty much exactly the same. I think I made like $1,000 more or $1,000 less or something, but it's pretty much exactly the same as I did in 2018. So 2019 was pretty stagnant. Which again, both of those years were each $20,000 less than what I made in 2017. It'd be really nice if I could make that money again. This year so far, on average, I'm making a little bit more on average than I have made the last 2 years on average. It's just really hard to say at this point because January was an amazingly, ridiculously good month. I made almost $10,000 that month. That's not typical. And but then February and March, I didn't make enough money. And then April, I don't know how much money I'm gonna make yet. So, I mean, it's still averaged out to like a little bit more than what my average was the last 2 years per month, but who knows? And then as far as like, what are the chances of becoming an online translator? Our world economies are collapsing and stuff, and people are losing their jobs, and there might even be more competition for online translators, and people are suddenly like, I have to work from home. What do I do? Oh, jobs from home. And then they find my video on how to become a translator, and they go, aha, I'm going to become a translator. I'm bilingual. So, hey, for all I know, there might be suddenly a lot more competition, and it'll be harder to become a translator online, especially without qualifications. I mean, at this point, my qualifications are my experience, the fact that I've been doing this for years. But if you look at like my actual CV and resume, I don't have a degree in Japanese, I don't have a degree in English, I don't have a degree in translation or linguistics or like any of those fields that you're like supposed to technically have a degree in to be a translator. Kind of lucked out and fell ass backwards into this profession. So I'm not necessarily the best person to ask because it's like, it's working for me, but that's not to say that it's going to work for you or for anybody else. But I have been advocating like more and more that people not try to pursue this as a full-time job. If you are, pursuing it as a full-time job, like for me, it technically is a full-time job, you're going to have to be doing something else on the side, hence this channel. And I tutor also on the side. So yeah, I mean, I recommend, pursue it if you want to, but also pursue other things. And on that inspirational note, thanks for watching that, and thank you for submitting your questions. I don't know when I'm gonna do another one of these. Like, these are strange times we live in, and as I said, I have been having a lot less work recently. It's just this is the time of year that work takes a downturn for translators, especially for me, just historically. February, March, April, May, I get not very much work. But hey, the upside is that I can make more videos. I have something creative in the works that I wrote a script for a couple weeks ago, but I haven't had the energy to film it yet because I haven't gotten a good night's sleep in 2 weeks. So tea. So, that's why I've been gravitating more towards these videos and my Japanese for Beginners series, because that's very formulaic and easy to get through. Check that out, by the way, if you want to learn Japanese. Anyway, I'm high from lack of sleep, so I think I'll end it here.